In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the rear window motor on this Toyota 4Runner. We are working on the driver's side, but the same process will apply to the passenger side. In the center of the door handle, you'll see a screw. Go ahead and remove it. It's a Phillips head screw. Take that out. Pull the door handle forward. If you pull it far enough, you'll see that it has a little clip that locks onto the rod that operates the handle. Press that back, and then pull the handle up and out of the way. Now let's go down to the window switch here. Gently pry it up with a pry tool of your choice. Just make sure you don't damage the plastic. Pop it up in the front, lift it, and then you'll see the electrical connector here. Press on the tab and unplug it, set that aside. Now let's move on to the armrest. You're going to want to pop it up so we can get access to the main mounting screws of the door. I'm using a trim tool for this. I don't want to damage or break anything. These two Phillips head screws are the main anchor screws for this door panel, so remove them. Set them aside safely. The last thing we have to undo is this little push clip on the outside of the door. I like to use a pick. Press the center in, just one click, and then pry it out like this. This is why I like to use the pick, because it can grab it without damaging anything. There is another one on the other side of the door panel, but ours is missing, but it would look the same way, and you do the same thing. You pop it in and slide it out. Now we just have to pry the door panel off. It has some push clips that lock it into the door itself. I'm going to use a plastic trim tool because I don't want to scratch up the paint on the door. Try to get it in here. There might be one or two areas where you can push the plastic door panel in or out, and then stick the tool in here. There we go. It might be tough, especially if this is the first time that this door panel has been off. Those clips are usually pretty strong. Pry it away like this, and then you just want to lift it up and off of the door. Now we have to peel off the vapor barrier. Some of it is already peeled off for us. Someone's been in here before, but you want to undo this retainer in the middle here for this wiring harness, because it'll release the center of the vapor barrier. Just pry it off with a just pry it off with a trim tool. There we go. Now we can carefully peel this away. Try not to get this stuff on your clothes. It's very sticky and it might not come off. We'll pull this down. We want this wide opening here. This is where the window regulator will come out through, and we need access to these 4 bolts here so we can actually unbolt it from the door. I like to put a few strips of the painter's tape here over the door, and make sure you use the kind that is at least about 1 inch wide. You don't want to use the narrow one because that one will break easily. It doesn't have to be very well positioned or perfect in any way. You just want it secured to hold the window in place for you. As soon as you take that regulator off, if you don't have it secured, it's going to want to roll down quite fast actually. It could break the glass. You want to avoid that. And I'm going to do three strips of this. I like to go about 1/3 to halfway down the window on each side. Make sure it's secured properly. And the reason I'm using this tape is because it doesn't leave any glue behind when you peel it off. If you use any other kind of tape, you're probably going to have to scrape some glue off. Let's unplug the window motor. The connector is right here. Press on this little tab that's at the top here. I'm just going to use a trim tool because I can't fit my finger in there. But take that off. There we go. And it's secured to the door, so pop it out. 4 10mm bolts hold this regulator onto the door. Doesn't matter where you start, just take them all off. But be careful when you take the last one off. You're going to want to hold this from the backside so it doesn't just drop down. Okay, last one. Okay, This will swing down, and now I'm going to take the whole assembly, slide it towards the inside of the door here, or towards the vehicle, and that's it. It'll just fall out of the window track here. There it is. Now to remove the old motor, take a T25 Torx bit and remove all 3 bolts. However, you can also use a flathead screwdriver, but I don't recommend it because these are pretty tight. They usually have thread locker on them, so a T25 will grab onto them better. Especially if you do it by hand, where you're fighting against your own leverage. Okay, lift this up, and there's the motor. Now take your window motor, line it up with the splines. If it doesn't, this can move around, so just make it line up. And then put in the 3 bolts that you took out. And tighten them up. And this is ready to go in the car. Now take window regulator, and if you look at the bottom of the window, you'll see the track that it has to slide in. And this won't be the easiest, but you just have to aim that plastic piece right at the bottom of this track here and slide it on. Okay, there it is. That just slid onto the track. Perfect. Now I want to connect the window motor temporarily so I can put power to it because I need the whole assembly to pivot and line up with the mounting area here. So plug in your window switch as well, and let's go turn the ignition on so we can operate the window. So the way this regulator comes assembled is basically at the halfway point, as if the window was rolled halfway down. So I need to roll the window up. And be very careful when you do this. You don't want to get your fingers pinched in there, but you want to move this until you see it line up with the mounting holes here. And even if it's not in its perfect position, if one screw or bolt hole lines up, put that one in and then continue moving it around. I got one lined up. Now I know it's not positioned where it needs to be, but like I said, one does line up, and I'm not going to tighten this one. I will start it and thread it as much as I can by hand. Now I will keep going, and it'll pivot on here and on the window, so you'll see this whole assembly twist until the other 3 line up. Perfect. That one is lined up like I want it to be. Thread this one in, and if 2 line up, well, the other ones will as well. Yep, here and here, perfect. This one has a little bit of wiggle room, but the other ones don't, so they have to be perfectly lined up. All right, let's tighten these up. All right, and now, before we operate it, let's take the tape off of the window. There we go. Let's test the functionality of the window. I'm going to go all the way down and then all the way up. If something doesn't work like it should, or if it gets jammed, just double check your work, make sure everything is lined up and it's connected properly. Now that we're done with this, let's unplug the switch. Don't forget to turn off your ignition so the battery doesn't die. And then let's resecure the window motor wiring harness. Put the vapor barrier back up. Slide this cable through the opening here. And just try to line it up the best you can with where it was and stick it back. Ours, unfortunately, someone has cut it instead of peeling it off, so it's not going to stick on very well, but I'm going to do my best to resecure it. It's important to do this so that moisture doesn't make its way inside of the door and inside of the vehicle through the door. Secure this back over here, and now we are ready to put the door panel back on. Take the door panel and slide it up and down from the top. Make sure the lock indicator goes through its little opening here. There we go. couple taps to make sure that it's fully seated. And then, once it is fully seated, you should be able to just tap it in place, and the push clips should lock in. If they don't lock in, that means it's not fully seated or it's at an angle, so just line it up and then tap it in again. Let's put these little push clips in. In order to install them, you actually want to push the centerpiece out 2 clicks. So 1 click would be to the set position, and then this one would be to into the released position. Then you can slide it in here, put it in flush, and then press it flush to lock it in. Do the same to the other one if yours isn't broken. Now let's put the 2 main anchor screws in for the door panel. Bottom these out and make them nice and snug. But once they get snug, don't go past that because it does screw into plastic. There's a plastic insert in there and it's easy to strip out. If it strips out, it won't hold. And this is also the area where you grab the door to close it, so it'll pull the door panel out if these aren't secured. Put the armrest back. Reconnect the window switch and slide the back end in first, then press the front in. Let's put the door handle back on, slide the rod into the area where it hooks on, and then reconnect it with this lock. Put the little tabs back in, push it backwards to lock it in, and then resecure it with the center screw. There you go.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.